Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to talk about something that's really annoying me. So, I keep seeing a lot of people talking about GTA 6 interiors and taking some leaks and speculation we've had, and then running a million miles an hour with it into the future, saying that every single building is going to be enterable. And me personally, for the most part, even though we had that leak saying that 70% of the interiors will be explorable, I'm still hesitant to believe that. Mainly because that leak came from a 14-year-old kid who was also wrong about some other things that he said. So, let's just go back to the trailer, and I want to point out some of the things that people got wrong, especially when it comes to the interiors. Before we get into today's video, I am trying to grow the channel. I'm a very new channel, only been doing this for a couple of months. So if you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel a lot, and it means a lot to me. Thank you. So, let's fast forward on the trailer a little bit. Let's go to a few key scenes that people are getting wrong. So the first scene I want to point out is this scene here. As you can see in the bottom right of the screen, we've got these interiors. So you can see these ceiling lights inside these buildings here. And people are saying because the perspective of those changes that they are going to be enterable interiors. Now that is a good theory, and it very well may be the case. But remember the latest Spider-Man game. So in that game, they used a parallax effect, which is basically like a three-dimensional image that warps depending on where you're stood in relation to it. So those interiors there didn't exist. They weren't physical 3D models. They were like 3 or 4 layers of photos that change perspective when you lay them on top of each other, and you can move them left or right to warp that perspective. And I think that's exactly what Rockstar may be doing for a lot of these interiors. Yes, there will be a load of interiors in the game that are probably going to be explorable. But if we even look up here at these apartment blocks, some of these apartments have lights inside them that change perspective depending on where this camera angle is. That doesn't mean that they're all visitable, and we can enter all of these buildings. Now there's a few more examples of this within the trailer. If we just scroll through. So for example, here on Vice Beach, we can see that this building here, there's a TV playing inside, and there's a room above it as well. And this perspective changes as the camera moves. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the building is enterable, or we can actually access that interior. As we can see on the left of that, there's some windows here, which also are succumbing to the parallax effect. Now, this isn't definitive proof that we will or won't have interiors, of course. We know there will be interiors in the game, but not every single visible interior that we can see is an explorable interior. Now, I'll give you my reasons for thinking this a bit later on in the video. But first, let's just have a look at some other interiors. We have something very similar in this shot here, where in the background, the object behind the window frame appears to be slightly moving slower than the foreground, which is how the parallax effect actually works. So this is another example where we can see on the left-hand side of the screen. See where the entrance to that house window is? You can actually see a window in the background. So as we move this shot, the window behind the house appears to be changing perspective. So this here could very well be an enterable interior, but it could also just be another example of this parallax effect, and it's done very well. But it doesn't mean the interior is enterable. So let me just explain my thought process here and why I don't think everything is an accessible interior. There are 3 main categories I want to break this down into. Number 1 is technical limitations. Now, I mentioned this in a previous video, and a lot of people jumped straight to the assumption that I meant that Rockstar couldn't physically do it. And that's not what I meant. What I actually meant was these games are being designed for the PlayStation 5. We already know that from Rockstar. They've announced that this game is coming out on PlayStation 5 in 2025. So we know the console-level hardware this has been designed for. And we also know the limitations of those consoles at the moment. PlayStation 5s are the peak of console gaming. They are really good, but they also can't sustain a game that has, let's just assume the map is twice the size of Los Santos. So that means it will probably have, if you count for every building in the game and every room of every building within the game, we're probably talking about 20 to 30 to 40,000 interiors. Okay, let's say it's 70% like that original leak claimed. We're probably talking somewhere around the 20 to 30,000 interior mark. That isn't possible. Yes, Rockstar has loads of employees. They have some of the biggest resources of any game developer in the world. But they don't have that much resource, especially as well when just designing the areas of the map is actually one piece of the puzzle of a very otherwise complex process of making a game. There's storylines, there's characters, there's the AI systems, there's the NPC interactions, there's the animations. There's so much more to think about than just interiors. And I don't see Rockstar having 70% of all the buildings enterable and building all the interiors for it. Now trust me, more than anyone in the whole world, I would love to be wrong. I would love for this game to come out and us to have the biggest world ever in any game ever seen. And we probably still will have that. But I just don't see it being possible that almost every interior in the game is enterable. What I do think they'll do is make as many enterable as they can that fit the narrative of the story and make sense in the context of the game. And the ones that they can't, they'll probably just use parallax effect exteriors on the buildings. So when we fly past them, walk past them, and travel past them, it looks a bit more realistic. In 2018/2019, Rockstar actually started sending location scouts out to Miami to visit real-world locations to start scouting for areas to put within the map, which means that it was only in 2019 or so that they started building the interiors of the game. But Rockstar claimed they started in 2022 on active development, according to the tweet that they put out. But let's just say it was 2019 for argument's sake. But then, of course, we had the pandemic, the lockdowns and stuff. And a lot of Rockstar employees, they're not allowed to do their jobs from home because of the privacy concerns, especially as we've seen with what happened with the Aaron Garbett situation. So yes, things can go wrong. So Rockstar employees weren't allowed to work from home on the game. So we've lost 2 years there. So now we're only left with 2 years where they could potentially build 10, 20, 30,000 interiors for a game. It's physically not possible. I had the pleasure of talking to some people that work for game developers, and they've all said that there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes working for a game developer than just what you see as a game. There is so much more when it comes to the finance, the researching. Rockstar has hundreds of people that go out and research locations and stuff. Not everyone that works at Rockstar builds interiors. So hopefully, you all found this video a bit useful. And also, I don't want to put a downer on the topic of the interiors in GTA 6. I'm sure there will be loads, probably more than any game we've seen previously from anyone. But going into this expecting every single interior to be visitable is unrealistic, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And I don't want that. I don't want my audience to watch loads of videos that are going out online and be setting themselves up to be disappointed by a game that will be incredible. I feel like it will ruin the experience, and I don't want that for you guys. So thank you all for watching today's video. If you did enjoy today's video, please consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you all in the next one.